Hey guys, so Joseph Smith was murdered by a mob of about 100 men while he was being held in jail in Carthage, Illinois on June 27, 1844. Did Joseph have a gun at the time of the attack? Yes, he did. Did Joseph fire that gun at his attackers? Yes, he did. As a result, did any of his attackers die? Let's talk about it. All right, quick background info. On June 10, 1844, the Nauvoo City Council, encouraged by Joseph, ruled that the anti-Latter-day Saint newspaper, the Nauvoo Expositor, was a public nuisance. They had it destroyed. They felt they were legally justified. The governor of Illinois did not. Joseph and several others faced riot charges and turned themselves in on June 24th. The next day, everyone was released on bail awaiting trial, except for Joseph and Hiram, who were charged last minute with treason and sent to Carthage Jail. Even Governor Ford later doubted whether they were guilty of treason. He recognized the charges simply as a ploy to keep the Smiths in jail for the purpose of murdering them afterward. Now, it's a lesser-known fact that the mob actually rushed the jail more than once before the final attack. Around midnight on the beginning of June 27th, visitor Dan Jones woke up and heard mobbers outside the jail plotting their assault. Dan woke everyone else up and they braced the door as they heard the mob advance up the stairs. He reported that the prophet with a prophet's voice called out,
"Come on, ye assassins! We are ready for you, and would as willingly die now as at daylight!"
Hearing this, they, the mob, retired again and consulted, advanced and retreated alternately until daylight. Around 5:30 a.m., Dan Jones asked the commander of the guard, Franklin Worrell, about the cause of the mob intrusion in the night. Worrell reportedly replied,
"We have had too much trouble to bring old Joe here to let him ever escape out alive."
Later that day, rightly fearing an attack, two other visitors, John S. Fulmer and Cyrus Wheelock, managed to smuggle a single-shot and a 6-shot pepperbox pistol into the jail. When given the single-shot pistol, Hiram told Joseph,
"I hate to use such things, or to see them used."
So do I, but we may have to defend ourselves.
The attack came at about 5:16 p.m. Joseph and Hiram were in the room with two visitors, Willard Richards and John Taylor. The mob rushed the door and opened fire. It's unclear whether or not Hiram fired the single-shot pistol before he was killed. As historian Alex Smith noted, if there's a shot from Hiram's single-shot pistol, it goes into the floor and not anyone out in the stairwell. After seeing his brother killed in front of him, Joseph opened the door slightly and snapped the other pistol 6 successive times, though the pistol misfired 2 or 3 times. John Taylor made for the open window but was shot down in the process. Joseph followed suit and was shot as he fell out the window. The mobbers then rushed back downstairs and outside, allowing Willard Richards to hide John Taylor, who had been shot 4 times. Now, did Joseph kill anyone in the attack? Personally, I don't really care.
What's the big deal? Nobody's that heartless.
I mean, I care in the sense that death is tragic, and this was a tragic situation. But the men in this mob were trying to murder these people, and I would fully expect Joseph to defend himself and the others there. So I don't feel like there's much at stake with this question, but for curious minds, John Taylor later wrote regarding Joseph's 6-shooter,
"I afterwards understood that 2 or 3 of the mob were wounded by these discharges, 2 of whom, I am informed, died."
It looks like John Taylor had been misinformed. It's generally accepted that Joseph got 3 shots off and wounded 3 men, John Wills in the arm, William Voris in the shoulder, and William Gallagher in the cheek of the face. Their wounds were not immediately life-threatening. After the attack, a guy named William Brackenbury saw these wounded men on the road headed back to Warsaw, where the mob had come from. Henry Matthias assisted them into Warsaw, where they bragged about their participation in the murders. Apparently, the citizens of Green Plains and Warsaw, Illinois, later gave Gallagher and Voris new suits for their involvement in the crime. The 3 men, among others, were later indicted to stand trial for murder, which would be a weird thing to do if any of these men were actually dead. The New York Herald reported that they did not make their appearance for trial, and it was understood they had left the state, probably because their wounds may have tied them to the crime scene. Now, an 1869 Atlantic Monthly article reported that Joseph actually got off 4 shots, and an unnamed 4th man was injured. There doesn't seem to be much reason to believe this claim. The article gets other details wrong, but if it's true, Some researchers speculate that the fourth man could have been a Mr. Allen, who was also indicted and didn't show up, but there's also no evidence to suggest he died from any wounds. B.H. Roberts speculated that if a fourth man had been injured, he might have been a guy named Townsend, referenced in a story from the 1850s in the autobiography of Parley P. Pratt. In the story, Joseph injures Townsend in the upper arm with his 6-shooter, and the wound never heals. Instead, it rots. The arm has to be amputated, but the man continues to rot for months and months. Eventually, he admits Joseph was a prophet of God, and that he'd brought his suffering down upon himself for participating in the mob, and then he dies a couple of months later.
Wow, buddy, that was, really dark.
And specific.
This is not a first-hand report, and I know of no other evidence to corroborate this account. Nobody seems to know who this Townsend guy was. The authors of Carthage Conspiracy lump this story into the category of Utah myth. And I agree. To me, this sounds like Latter-day Saint folklore. I give it a 5% chance of being accurate, max.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
If you're going to claim that Joseph killed someone in the attack at Carthage, you need more evidence than he said, she said, and that evidence just isn't there. If you're interested in learning more about why Joseph wanted the Nauvoo expositor destroyed, the event that led to his initial arrest, go watch this video and have a great day.